And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And today I want to talk about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the TV series, not the book series, because the book series is also awesome, but the TV series is just wrapped up. This was on Disney Plus, and it was fun. It was a fun series. This is the TLDR. Turns out I liked Percy Jackson and the Olympians season 1. Okay. Yeah, this was an interesting show. I really enjoy the books. Okay, Percy Jackson and the Olympians and the Heroes of Olympus series are lots of fun. The Trials of Apollo I didn't like quite as much, but they were fun series, right? And I really like the meshing of Greek mythology and modern day. Okay, I like the way they sort of interweave all of that stuff. Okay. Now, is it perfect? No, of course not. The books aren't, the TV show isn't, but they are a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the series because they were fun. It's one of the reasons I like a lot of YA fantasy, is because you get the adventure and you don't lose the fun. I think too many adult or series targeted towards adults lose that aspect of telling stories, is they lose the fun. And I like things that are fun. So let's talk about season 1 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. One, I thought they did a great job of telling the story that was actually in the book Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Okay. So the idea is that each season is going to cover one book from that series. And the Lightning Thief it had been adapted into a movie before, which had its moments, I guess, but basically didn't really tell the story very well. Or more to the point, it told the Lightning Thief aspect of the story, but stripped out everything that was related to the rest of the series. So I'm going to talk spoilers here because I kind of have to, but the book's been out for 20 years. So, if that's not spoilers enough. One of the big aspects, or actually it's the main through line of Percy and the Olympians, is that the Titan Kronos is rising from Tartarus to conquer the Greek gods and the world itself. Okay. This is the ongoing problem. Okay. Sort of like Harry Potter has Voldemort, Percy Jackson has Kronos. Now, in the movies that they had made, however many years ago it was, they stripped all of that out and just told of Percy going to find and recover Zeus's master bolt, the bolt that all of his lightning is patterned after, and I guess a focus for his ability to throw lightning. Okay. Well, it gets stolen. Percy goes to find it. Okay, that's the premise. But throughout the book, there are hints that other things are happening. And you start to see that with Percy's dreams, for example. And you see that, like, there's a scene where it should have been Percy who was being dragged into Tartarus, which is like the pit that all of the monsters get thrown into. When they die, they respawn there. It's that type of, it's sort of a hell. Okay. And he was supposed to have gotten dragged there by some cursed tennis shoes. And Grover instead had been wearing the shoes because he was a satyr and had hooves and not feet. The shoes pulled off his feet and down into the hole. Fabulous, right? These are the things that go through the entire book, right? You're getting all of these hints that there's more going on here than just the family squabbles of Zeus and his children, his siblings, and their children. Okay, and this series did a pretty good job of telling that. Obviously, anytime you convert a book to any other medium, really, something has to change. Okay, there are things that work in a book that don't work on screen, and there are things that work on screen that don't work in a book. It's just the nature of the storytelling, right? With a book, you can have all of the internal monologues of your protagonist. That doesn't work well in a movie or on TV, and so you have to adjust your storytelling to adapt to that. Okay, and they did a good job. They cut out some stuff that didn't need to be there. They adapted some things to make it easier to tell the story on screen. And as I said, I think they did a pretty good job of it. Now, I had some issues. And again, I said I love the series, but I had some problems. And some of it, I think, I don't know, maybe it was the format. I'm not entirely sure. It felt like the series was sort of rushing through the book. On the other hand, it also felt slow. Does that make sense? It was weird. Now, I think this might be a case of the series is going to be better on a binge. Okay? Now, I haven't done that yet, and I probably will. Not soon. Hermitcraft Season 10 just started. I'm going to be busy for a little while. But, no, it had a weird feel to it at times. And I said, I think this show is going to be fabulous on a binge, because I think part of my feeling of the slowness of the storytelling is the week-to-week break. Okay. So take that with a grain of salt. Each episode itself felt pretty good. So I had some issues. I had a really serious issue. And then why the solution worked just dawned on me. So we'll get to that in a minute. But my other issue is that I was not overly impressed with the acting of the child stars. Okay. Leah Jeffries as Annabeth, I never felt like she was Annabeth. Right? I always felt like she was acting. Now, I don't know how old she is. They were pretty insistent. These characters are 12. Okay? So, it's, they're definitely children, and the actors are young enough to play them as children. So, that may be part of it. But I never felt like I was seeing Annabeth on screen. I always felt like I was seeing somebody playing Annabeth on screen. And in some ways, I felt the same way about Walter Scobell as Percy. Though I think he got better as the series went on. Now, obviously I know they film things out of order, so it's not like they've started day one here and just, because that's just not how TV or movie production works. When it gets to the final episode, his fight with Ares, his confront, basically ends up confronting Zeus. He returns the bolt, but then confronts him and drops the, hey, bad times are coming. You've got to pay attention to this warning. And then his discussion with Poseidon afterwards. All of that felt really good. That felt more like, hey, I'm watching Percy Jackson. I'm not watching Walter Scoble playing Percy Jackson, right? And I kind of felt that from, I said, all three of the actors. Aryan Shimhadri, who played Grover. I did not like the portrayal. I think he acted the direction he was given. And to be honest, it probably is very accurate to the books. When I read Grover in the books, I don't read him as being whiny, I guess. Now, he was always nervous in the books. He ends up, eating his way through a bag full of tin cans and things like that, right? They cut that, all of that, all the cans and stuff they cut out of this show entirely. So it could be just the portrayal of what actually is on the page didn't sit well with me. And I don't know what it was. I said it's not that it was bad. It just, I could never connect to Grover in the series. Now, there was a great scene, actually, this whole sequence where he and Ares are sitting in a burger shop. They're in a diner while Percy and Annabeth have to go to, okay, I want to call it Waterworld because that's the name of the actual water park in Denver. Waterland, I think as they call it in the book. Yeah, my mom lived in Wheat Ridge. Waterworld is right there. We went to Waterworld on multiple occasions. So it was a fun water park to play at. They had some great water slides, all sorts of good stuff. Okay, but anyway, Percy and Annabeth go to Waterland to get Ares' shield, right? Now, this had some substantial changes from the book. And I think part of that was to really focus and understand Annabeth a little bit more. But I think it also helped show how separate Percy was from the Greek mythological world. Okay. So just like the book, they go to the water park. They end up on the it's the Tunnel of Love, but it's a thrill ride of love, something like that, right? In the book, it's their car goes down ramps. You get this whole water slide type, roller coaster type ride, and you get some of that in the show as well. But they also use the ride to tell the story of Hephaestus. And what you end up with in the show is basically this episode really focusing on the really messed up family dynamics of Zeus and the other gods, right? Hephaestus was deeply in love with Aphrodite. She, of course, wanted nothing to do with him because he was malformed, if you want to use that messed up term for it. He was twisted, I think, is how the description usually goes, and ugly, right? Not, I literally, I think he was so ugly they had some issues, right? And Hephaestus, I think the myth goes, and this part wasn't in the book, but the myth was, Hephaestus trapped Athena in a chair that he had designed that she could not escape. And Hephaestus only let Athena out if he was given Aphrodite to be his wife. This leads to some other issues as well, but right, you can see this family is messed up. Well, in the book, or in the TV show, excuse me, they find the chair, and the chair is the key to getting the shield. So Percy sacrifices himself, he sits in the chair, he's trapped by it, and now Annabeth gets the shield. Okay. And she starts trying to work on the chair. Of course, she's never going to be able to solve it, because that's not her. This is a puzzle designed by a god of puzzles, right? It's not likely that she's going to solve it. And she doesn't. She ends up having a very interesting heart-to-heart with somebody who they call Hephaestus. Now, I use that phrase deliberately. What they portrayed Hephaestus as was a sort of kindly professor type with a cane. This was not the twisted, too ugly to be around person that's described in the myths. And that led to, that whole mess with Aphrodite. Now, does that matter? I don't know. But it bugged me. That said, the actor did a fine job. But it was stuff like that kind of bugged me. Okay. On the other hand, the story they told was great. Okay. If I'm going to engage with the story that's presented and acknowledge that, okay, some things I disagreed with their take on that character. Okay, fine. That's not a problem. But engaging with the story they presented is, here is Annabeth, who's grown up basically in this world and has just taken the behavior of the gods for granted. And here she is, she's dealing with Percy, and he's not accepting of this. He's straight up saying, this isn't right. This is stupid. These people are jerks. Because Sally, his mom, made sure he understood that as he was growing up. And Annabeth has learned that, and that's part of what part of the story that's told in that episode is the family dynamics of the gods is not great. They're petty, backbiting jerks most of the time. Some, not so much. And the series codes Poseidon as sort of the model of, he's the good guy, right? Turns out he's also still has his issues, but everyone else has problems, and it is sort of the whole point of the story. We find out in later books that Hermes' treatment of Luke is part of what set him on the path to become the antagonist, or at least the henchman of the story, right? He is the human avatar that does the bidding and does the will of Kronos through the rest of the story. And part of that, and part of the reason he recruits other demigods to support his cause, is because the rest of the gods are jerks, right? They treat their children badly, and it doesn't. It's just a mess. So while they changed that scene in for this TV series, and in the book, it's just Annabeth working fast to rig the boat they're on to escape. Okay, as they come down a hill, and she rigs something and does the math in her head so Percy can give them a boost with all the water. right? Which he can do because he is the son of Poseidon and has all of these water powers, right? So it was an excellent change. There are some changes like with the Lotus Hotel. The time stuff is still there, but like the hotel is still sort of outside of time a little bit. But in the books, they don't meet Hermes there. And I think it helps. They help set up a little bit more of what's coming in later books or later series, I suppose. And I said it worked fairly well. I said most of those changes were good. Some of it they just sort of hand waved. Like after they help Ares, he gets him on a truck to Vegas. Here's your ride to the next step in the trip. In the book, that's just take it as far as it'll go, and they break out of it in Vegas when it stops. And it's a truck full of exotic animals, and there's a lot of discussion about the animals and nature and Pan and all this other stuff, which again comes up a lot through the rest of the series. And they cut that storyline completely out of the movies that had been made. Well, in this series, yes, they get in the truck with exotic animals, and at the beginning of the next episode, they're out of the truck and the animals are running loose in Vegas. They just cut out all of the story there, which is okay. I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad. But, again, you've got to make changes for the time allotted, and let's tell the important story, not some of these little extra bits and pieces. Okay. I've said it that I didn't like the acting as much from the child stars. The adults were fabulous. It was pretty amazing, most of them. Adam Copeland, who played Ares, was perfect as that sort of menacing, angry, stupid god of war, right? And he brought in all of his wrestling background, and it was fabulous. And when Poseidon calls him a moron later, it's like, we see that completely. So, I totally get that. And you see that they had Lin-Manuel Miranda, who played Hermes, and he did fine. Because he's a tremendous actor, right? The person who really stole the show was Virginia Cull, who played Sally Jackson. Man, you really feel everything from her, right? You get she really broadcasts all of that mom energy, and the full package of mom energy. The parent who is tired and loves their kid, but can only do so much and is trying to help them, and sometimes doesn't like the solution she has to go through, but right. Yeah, as a parent, I've been there, right? I know that feeling. Plus the intense love she does everything even when it hurts her, right? She'll do everything for her kid because that's who she is. And man, her portrayal is amazing. Amazing. One of the best parts of this show. On the other hand, I wasn't particularly thrilled with Chiron. Again, it's so many of the actors, they felt stilted almost. Maybe if I watch it again, it'll feel better. It'll feel more like I'm in the story and less I'm watching a story, right? If that makes sense. But for the most part, the actors are great. Okay, all of the guest stars, they shined, and that was amazing. But it kind of their amazingness really made the weaknesses of the child leads stand out a little bit. Now, with that said, I think all of the actors playing all of those children improved as the series went on. And if they make the next 4 seasons of this show, I think they're going to be great, right? I was able to see it already with Scoble. His initial scenes there with Yancey Academy and all of that, and actually, heck, the early stuff at Camp Half-Blood, so it felt really awkward. And not like, oh, he's an actor playing a kid who's awkward. It's the actor looks awkward in the role. He looks awkward acting. On the other hand, said at the end of the series, he was great. And there are a couple of scenes, there's a scene with him and Hades, which I think he did pretty well. So you could see there was some progression. He's getting better. And I think all of these actors, if the series continues, are going to be fabulous by the end. Right? And we saw that in Harry Potter, too. Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, their acting in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is not wonderful. It's good. I mean, they're okay. You can see why they got the role maybe over somebody else. But they feel like child actors, right? They look like people who are acting as opposed to being Harry and Hermione and Ron, right? By the end of those movies, they are Harry and Hermione and Ron, and not actors playing Harry, Hermione, and Ron, right? They grew as actors over the 8 or 9 years that it took to make those movies. I think we're going to see the same growth for these 3, and I'm really excited about it. I'm stoked to see where this goes, because I think, despite their weaknesses now, I think they're going to be amazing, and the story is really good. And I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, I think, of books I think would be better as TV series rather than movies. This was high on my list because I think it fits better into this format. And the books tend to be, they almost read like an adventure of the week. Okay, and that's not a bad thing, because they've got a great through line of the story, but it is very much this chapter is a crisis, and they solve the crisis, and then they deal with the aftermath in the next chapter or 2, and then it's the next crisis. And that structure works really well for the series. And we saw that here in this one, because you get Percy with his troubles in New York. You get his time at Camp Half-Blood. And then you get the major stops along his trip west, right? Running into Medusa, running into Echidna at the St. Louis Arch, the stuff at the Lotus Hotel, Hades, and the underworld and that whole story, and then Ares and the conclusion, okay? All of that fit fairly nicely. And yeah, they cut out little bits here and there, but it works wonderfully for this format. Now, I had an issue, and this is a 100% of me issue I've discovered. So, in the books, they travel from New York to Los Angeles, and eventually they end up on the beach outside Santa Monica or something. They end up on a beach outside of LA, and that's where the major showdown happens. They defeat Ares, and Zeus permits Percy, and that's important because it comes in later, but he permits Percy to fly back to New York. Okay. So here I am. I'm watching this play out, and I got very confused because they were not in California, standing on the beach in the Pacific Ocean. They're back in Montauk, by the house that Percy and his mom go to at the very beginning. And it made zero sense. And how did they get back? And they just walk back to New York? What happened? Rather than the pearls they used to get out of the underworld, which I think were pomegranate seeds in the book. But the pearls they use in the books, it puts them back on the beach in the Pacific. In the TV series, no, it took them back to New York. And it took me a minute. It took me several minutes. It hit me yesterday. It's like, well, duh, of course this is what happened. I feel like an idiot. Yeah, of course. It beams them wherever they need to go. And the story needed them to be on the East Coast. Doesn't matter. That confrontation with Ares can happen anywhere, as long as it's on a beach, because that's how the story worked. Doesn't have to be the Pacific. It could be the Atlantic. Okay. Yeah. It's like... So I was confused, and this is 100% a me problem, but yeah, it was good. So, as I said, the final confrontation with Zeus was great. So I'm happy with it. And I watched this with two of the biggest Percy Jackson fans I know, my two younger daughters. And my youngest had to go to college before the series ended, so I don't know if she's been watching it, but the other one, we've been sitting here, and she's like, oh, this has been amazing, this has been great. They actually told the story of the books, right? So they were thrilled. And so am I. I said it was really good. They got all of the main stuff. They brought Dionysus. He's there at camp. They cut him out of the movie completely. So if you are a fan of the books, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, this is a fabulous telling of that first book, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I'm hopeful, so hopeful that they actually make the rest of the books in this series into the shows. I hope they do another 4 seasons of this. Heck, I hope they do another 9 seasons of this and do the Heroes of Olympus. I don't know if they'll get the chance, but from what I've been seeing online, this series has been hitting a lot harder than all of the Marvel TV stuff has, which, to be fair, some of the recent Marvel TV stuff has not been good. So who knows? Who knows? I really do, though. I really hope that this takes off. It's expensive, and Disney is trying to make Disney Plus profitable, so who knows? But I hope they do. This was a great series. What I hope was a great season 1 of the rest of this series. So, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, I recommend it. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.